Good morning again. Tim Williams from North Florida. Hey guys, I've been on several times over the last few weeks talking to you about several different topics. And one of the things I started thinking about yesterday, actually a couple days ago, but really yesterday, is about something that really all of us deal with to some extent, but some people really have to deal with this topic, and that is the topic of fear and how to get past fear in your life. I'm not going to take just a few minutes here, but I think one of the things that really got me to think about this, I've just finished reading a book, and I love to read. I'm a reader, and I've read a lot of books in my life. I've got over 1,000 books in my library, and just maybe this will help you out, maybe it won't. But the way I do when I read is if it's a good book, I read it 3 times. The first time I read a book, I read through it pretty quick. A lot of times just scanning through the book. The second time I slow down and read the book, and I highlight the things in that book that I may want to remember, the things that jump out that mean something to me. And the third time I read that book, I read nothing but the highlights. And then I keep that book so that if I ever need to refer back to it, I've got that book and I've got the things highlighted that I need in it. But I've been reading a book over the last week or so, and there's several different topics in this book, but one of the things in this book was talking about fear. And it really got me to thinking about fears that I've had in my life, and that most people, everybody I know, has some type of fear they deal with. And if you're a person that deals with fear a lot, I can normally tell you that your life is full of indecisions and doubt, because indecision and doubt is what brings about fear. And when you find one of these, you will normally find the other 2 in your life. If you're a person of fear, you usually have indecision and doubt there. If you're a person of doubt, it will create fear. If you're a person of indecision, you procrastinate a lot, then you normally become a person of doubt. You're a doubting Thomas is what we would call you sometimes, and you have a lot of fears in your life. And so I think it's something that we all deal with, and we all have to deal with it on a different level. And so I just wanted to talk to you about it just a minute this morning. I made several notes here, and so if you see me glancing down at my notebook, I'm just making sure that I get out what I had put down that I thought was important. You see, indecision, that is a seedling of fear. And, and a lot of times we don't think about that, we procrastinate about a lot of things. And what we really should do is get our information, get a knowledge in a situation, and make a decision about it. And we don't do that a lot of times. And so it's very important that we are a people of getting wisdom. The Bible says get wisdom in all things. And so we need to gain wisdom in the areas where we have fears, and it will help us to overcome those fears. There's many fears. We couldn't list all the fears there are out here. And you may have a few, you may have a lot. But there's 6 basic fears that we all deal with. We deal with the fear of poverty. We deal with the fear of criticism. We deal with the fear of having bad health. We deal with the fear of losing a loved one, whether it be through death or a divorce or a tragedy of some kind. We deal with the fear of old age. We deal with the fear of death. Everybody at some point in time thinks about death. And a lot of people have a great fear of death. I don't have a fear of death because I know where I'm going. I know what eternity is for me. So I don't have that fear of death. But a lot of people do, because a lot of people don't have that assurance that I do. But that's the 6 basic fears that all people deal with. Now there's many other types of fears, but they'll all come under those 6 topics normally. That all fears can be grouped under those 6 topics. Fear is nothing more than a state of mind. Everything starts with a thought, and you've heard me mention this a couple times on some of my Facebook lives. That Everything that we do starts with a thought. When you woke up this morning, there was thoughts that began to come to your mind. When you laid down to go to bed last night, there was thoughts going through your mind. And a lot of times those thoughts is what keeps us up at night and won't let us sleep. So we need to learn how to deal with those thoughts, because those thoughts can either bring fear or they can bring faith into our life. And so fears is nothing more than a state of mind. Your mind is subject to control and direction. We can control our thoughts. When you start having a thought that brings fear, you can change that thought. You can begin to think of something else. You can begin to think positive instead of negative. And so we have control over our mind. Actually, that's the only thing that nature has ever given you that you do have totally control over. You don't have total control over your health. You have some control over it, but you don't have total control, because there's many circumstances around you that can affect your health and well-being. But your mind is one thing that you and I have total 100% control of. Many years ago, right after I graduated high school, my older brother Tony, he gave me a book. I don't know if he remembers it or not, but he gave me a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And very foolishly at that time, I didn't read it. I didn't throw it away. I was smart enough to keep it. I don't ever throw away a book. But anyway, I put that book up in a bookcase and just left it there for several years before I read it. And I finally read that book. And there was something that was in that book that I want to read to you that Napoleon Hill said. It said, every human being has the ability to completely control his or her own mind. And with this control, every person may open or close his or her mind to negative or positive thoughts and impulses. We all have that control over our mind. There was many things in that book that's helped me throughout the years, but helping me to understand that, hey, I do have control over my mind, and when negative things come, when doubt comes, when there's indecision in my life, I can change that. I have the ability to change that, and only I do. You have complete control of it. Everything begins with a thought. Everything in life. I've taught on that biblically many times. Most people have a fear of poverty. The 6 basic fears I gave you, I didn't give them in any particular order as to their importance, but most people have a fear of poverty, and they'll have a poverty mindset unless they train their thoughts in a different direction. You see, whatever that fear is, whether it's the fear of poverty or the fear of death, the fear of having bad health, you have to train yourself in a different direction. You've got to read, you've got to study, you've got to talk to people, and just do things that will change the direction of those thought patterns. And when you do, those things will begin to change in your life. But if you have, for example, if you have a poverty mindset and you never do anything about it, you will always have that poverty mindset. And as I was thinking about this, I thought about an older gentleman. He's dead and gone on to be with the Lord now, but he lived through the Depression, and this man never got over the Depression. It caused him to have a poverty mindset, and he went through his whole life with that poverty mindset. He was afraid that he was going to lose everything he had, and so he would never give. He was not a giver. He would not give anybody anything because he felt like he had to have that. He had to hold on to it because he may need it. And so many people are that way. Even though a lot of people living today didn't go through the Depression, there's other things that have caused them to have the poverty mindset. There can't be any compromise between the poverty mindset and having a wealth mindset. You can have either one. It's up to you. Just like you have a choice about your health. You can choose to just let life live you, and do nothing, eat what you want, live like you want, and it will affect your health, and your health will go in that direction. Or you can make a choice to have a healthy lifestyle. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we've waited to very late in life to make that choice, and when we should have made it many years ago, and it would have helped us. A lot of us wouldn't be in the shape we are in today if we had changed our lifestyle and our thought pattern about health and wellness. And so, but because of indecision, because we doubted it would work for us, my business is in the health and wellness industry, and I talk to a lot of people about it. And it's amazing how many people you share with about the products that we have, that they just don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. They'd rather take medication than to take something natural. And most of us, because they will not take the time to train their mind to change their thoughts about that topic. And so there's all these fears that we have, we can change from fear to having faith. Fear and faith will not operate at the same time about the same subject. You can be in fear about one thing and in faith about something else. It doesn't mean that everything in your life you walk in fear about it. But if the areas that you do have fear, those are the areas that we need to concentrate on and try to educate ourselves and get ourselves out of that fear, so that we can. It will help us live a better life, have a happier life, a longer life. And so, talking about poverty, the road that's traveled to poverty and wealth, it goes in opposite directions. You can't travel that road together. It's the same thing with health and wellness. You can't travel. Health and wellness goes in one direction, and sickness and disease goes in the other. And so you have to make a conscious decision that, hey, I'm going to change. I'm going to do something different in my life. I'm going to do something different about my health and wellness. I'm going to do something about my financial situation. I'm going to do something different about my family situation. And it all starts with a thought. But you can't travel both roads like that. You have to make a decision which way you're going to go, and then gain the wisdom and understanding that you need to make the right decision that will help you build your faith. If you choose to live to get away from that poverty mindset and live a life of wealth, then you have to choose and refuse to accept any circumstance or thought that leads to poverty. Well, the same thing with health and wellness. If you're a person that every little thing comes along, you catch it, you confess it, then you need to make a decision to refuse those things and start doing things that will help you to just your confession. Number one, stop confessing that everything comes along is yours. This is kind of off track a little, but I'll go there anyway. We'll chase a little rabbit here. There are people out here that everything that comes along, they catch it. It's theirs. Well, stop catching it. Stop confessing that you're going to catch the common cold. Stop confessing that, hey, it's flu season and I always get the flu. I'm going to get the flu this year. Well, you know what? You probably will. But that's not what I confess. I confess by faith that I walk in wholeness, that I will not have the flu, that I will not have the common cold, that I won't have cancer, that all these things that people just continually confess. And so we can make a difference in our life, in our health and wellness, and in our financial well-being just by what we confess. You see, the more you confess something, the more your mind will be convinced that you can have it. And you have to, if you're going to live that lifestyle of health and wellness, of having financial success, having a happy family, then you need to confess those things with your mouth, believe in your mind, and you'll have those things. The thing, the starting point for good health and wellness, the starting point to change from a poverty mindset to having a mindset of wealth, is you got to have a desire. And that was one of the main things that I learned in that book many years ago that I read by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. If you've never read that book, get the book. I read that book many times. And unfortunately, I loaned that book to somebody, something that I very rarely do. I loaned it to someone, and they never give it back. So if you have my book, Think and Grow Rich, I would like to have it back. But I bought a newer copy of it, and I've read it many times. But in that book, it talked about desire being one of the main things that you have to do when you start changing your mindset about something. You have to have a desire for it. If you want to be financially secure, you got to have a desire to do things different. I was just listening to a teaching this week from Jerry Savelle on finances and having God's favor, and one of the things that he stressed in there is that you got to have a desire to change things in your life, change the circumstances that you can change, that you have control over, to move towards that lifestyle. And so we have to strive every day to do that. You have to determine your own road. You have to determine your own roadmap to health and wellness. You have to determine your own roadmap to more health, more wealth, and those type things. But all of it begins and ends with thoughts. And so we need to learn to change our negative thoughts to positive thoughts. We need to hang around with positive people instead of negative people. And we need to keep ourselves on that road towards health and wellness, towards financial success, towards happy marriage, a happy family, whatever it is you're dealing with. The fear of poverty is just a mindset. The fear of death it's a mindset. If you have the fear of death, you can change that. I've never had the fear of death or dying since I became a Christian, since I became a born-again Christian. And see, that one factor right there took away that fear. And so those things, I don't consume my mind with that, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that it's okay. But the fear we have sometimes of losing loved ones, especially the fear we have of, we're thinking about losing our parents when we have relied on them over and over and over throughout life, and then all of a sudden reality comes that, hey, they're getting older, or maybe a lot of my dad died when he was 42 years old, so he was not an old man when he passed away. But we have those fears. We all deal with them. We have fears of losing our children and things of that nature, but we can't dwell on that. If when those times come, we deal with it and we move on. We grieve and we move on. And so we learn to deal with all those things. I think the fear of poverty is probably no doubt the most destructive of the 6 basic fears. And the reason of that is it's the most difficult to master for most people. Most people, because of the time we live in, it's so easy to get credit cards. It's so easy to get credit. It's so easy to go in debt, and it's so easy to do all these things that gets us all of a sudden in a situation where it will cause you to have a poverty mindset. And so that's kind of the reason I've talked about the fear of poverty more than I have the others, is because so many people deal with that. And I think the second would probably be the fear of bad health, because so many people deal with that. But we have an awesome God. He will help you through your financial problems. He will help you through your sickness and disease. He will help you through whatever you have. But in the process, He expects you and I, there's things that we have to do. There's things that He expects us to do. The Bible says that He already knows what our needs are, and that He's already took care of our needs. But it requires us to use our faith to bring those things to being. It requires you and I to do things. It requires us to change our mindset. You can't think and be a person of fear and expect your faith to work. It just don't work that way. And so I just challenge you today to to look at your fears and say, what is it that I fear? What is it that I can do to change that fear? What is it? Is it? Am I hanging around people that I need to stop hanging around? Am I going places I need to stop going? Maybe you need to start reading your Bible more. Maybe you need to start reading more books on how to help you deal with whatever it is you're dealing with. And there's help out there for us to overcome our fears, is what I'm trying to say. But it's up to you and I. We have to change our mindset. We have to change our thoughts to, hey, I have a problem. I have a fear that I need to overcome. And what am I going to do to change that fear? I don't know. I don't know what your fear is. But I know that we all deal with fears every day. And so I challenge you today to whatever that fear is, let's overcome it. Get the help you need. Talk to the people you need to, and overcome your fear. Overcome your fear of poverty. Overcome your fear of sickness and disease. I have a health situation, but you know what? It does not get me in fear. I refuse to let my mind go to the side of fear. I'm going to stay in faith that the best is yet to come. I'm in faith that my God will take care of me. I'm in faith that my doctor has my best interest at heart. I'll stay in faith in all those situations, and I'll refuse to go to doctors that would put me in fear. I refuse to hang out with people that will speak over me doubt and unbelief and speak sickness over me. And so I have learned in those areas what I have to do to stay motivated in my mind that no, this disease will not hinder me. This disease will not take my life early. This disease will not keep me from doing what I'm supposed to do. And you know what? I live a very good, happy lifestyle. And so, I think it's something that we all need to deal with. I went longer this morning than I really meant to. I was just going to jump on here for 5 minutes. But for a preacher, a speaker, it's hard to speak for 5 minutes. So anyway, God bless you. I hope you got something out of this. If you know somebody that lives in fear, tag them with this, send it to them. God bless you. Remember that today is Wednesday. It's Wealth Wednesday. Go do a random act of kindness for people today and expect nothing in return. God bless you.